Hello. Start in America with Game Over. California Attorney General breaks from 50 state mortgage settlement. I've touched on this a few times. What's basically happening is the banks are being, let's say, sued for their naughtiness in mortgage naughtiness by all the attorneys general, so they could give them a fine that wouldn't be too arduous for them, and then wipe the slate clean. But Kamala Harris from California has now pulled out of that deal, as have a couple of the other attorneys general, which kind of makes the entire global deal now a no-go, which is, in a way, good for what people might call justice, because the banks might actually get some retribution for their mortgage naughtiness, but obviously it means that the banking problems will drag on further. Second, most food stamp recipients have no earned income. A Wall Street Journal article with lots of little factlets in it about poverty in the United States, quite frankly, and there's a lot of it. Speaking of poverty, RT gives a suicide epidemic hits bankrupt farmers in India. Now, in India, farmers have often gone through droughts, etc., and that type of hardship. But this is a suicide epidemic because they're bankrupt. And you can imagine what's happened. There's only one comment in there. This is the result of destructive multinational chemical and seed companies like Dow and Monsanto. And even if we want to give Dow and Monsanto and the whole idea of changing the ecosystem into some sort of glorified laboratory, even if we wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt and say that they were really trying to feed the world, it's a very dubious project at best, and is a very dubious project at best. And it's just the farmers that they could handle the drought because they knew that generations of farmers like them could handle the drought. But it's the bankruptcy that really gets to them, that they're having to borrow money to buy the seeds and the fertilizers to grow these laboratory crops. Bloomberg: utilities giving away power as wind, sun flood European grid. This is Germany. The 15-mile-per-hour winds that buffeted northern Germany, 15-mile-an-hour wind buffeting, still. These winds buffeted northern Germany on July the 24th and caused the nation's 21,600 windmills to generate so much power that utilities, such as those two mentioned, had to pay customers to take it off the grid. I don't quite know how you do that, but basically there was just the right amount of wind and sun, and these renewables created so much energy that Germany just did not know what to do with it. But of course that's just one day. But Germany are obviously leading the world and will show the world these sorts of problems. And when you lead the world, Germany will be getting round these problems, so the countries that follow will be able to read the book. Bloomberg again: Denmark to provide banks $72.6 billion lifeline. Denmark's central bank said it will provide as much as 400 billion kroner as part of an extended collateral program to provide emergency liquidity to the country's banks. Less said the better about that, I think. I touched on Denmark yesterday, didn't I? New York Times: Simon Johnson used to work for the IMF and has written some really bad articles lately. Presumably he's concentrating on his teaching. I think he's MIT, is he? Can't quite remember. But yeah, some of his articles lately have been really bad. But this one's a lot better. He's obviously concentrated on this one. What would it take to save Europe? And I'll just give you the opening paragraph, seeing we're here together. Official Washington was gripped last weekend by euphoria, at least briefly, as people attending the annual meetings of the IMF began to talk about how much money it would take to stabilise the situation in Europe. At least one eminence grise, old grey duffer, suggested that €1.5 trillion should do the trick. Others were more inclined to err on the side of caution, and their estimates ran as high as €4 trillion. And from that you get the idea that they owe so much money that they need to borrow that much more money to pay it back. Or something like that. This next chart, number 7, is declining trade volumes in Italian long-term debt. The ECB is coming in and buying on the yield curve of Italy, but generally on the shorter end, I think. But the market has said, well, we just don't understand this anymore, and we're just not going to buy any of it. You can see 3 days running at the end of last week, they didn't buy any Italian long-term debt at all. It's what happens when something like the ECB come in and do something that's totally abnormal. It disrupts everything, and nobody really understands anything anymore, if they understood it in the first place. Opinion by George Soros in the Financial Times, How to Stop a Second Great Depression. This has been hailed in many econ blogosphere posts as a really intelligent sort of article. We'll leave the first paragraph out. It's a bit silly. 3 bold steps are needed. First, the governments of the Eurozone must agree in principle on a new treaty creating a common treasury for the Eurozone. Common treasury for the Eurozone. Taxes go to one central area. Yep, sort that out before the end of next week and things will be just fine. That's not going to happen, is it? So, that's how to stop a Great Depression. Includes doing that. So presumably you can't stop a Great Depression. It's very interesting the way things are being written at the moment. Columnist Martin Wolf, who's been doing all this thinking about how to sort things out, and he says it's time to think the unthinkable and start the printing presses. And that's basically what the article is. He says things are so bad, they can only get worse, and the only way of stopping it is by firing up the printing presses and helicopter dropping money hither and thither. And I'm only bringing this up to show the desperation of the world's big economic thinkers of how to get out of this problem. Because just to write an article saying time to think the unthinkable and start printing again is it is pretty desperate, isn't it? Just pull this off the ECB website, because Friday last week they came out with the inflation for the Eurozone, and you can see that last tick up was just horribly in the wrong direction for the European Central Bank. Really was. Because I think they would like to drop their interest rates 25 basis or 50 basis points while Trichet is in. So Mario Draghi doesn't have to do it as one of the first Italian things he does at the central bank, to drop the interest rates down. And I'm sure they would have wanted to make life comfortable for him by doing it as Trichet's last act. But that little kick up in inflation will not amuse Germans, whose inflation rate did kick up as well last week, contributing to that. The Germans won't like it at all. They've got this morbid fear of inflation. with, understanding from the stories of Weimar Republic. But they really are unfounded fears at the moment. And I'll leave you with this cartoon, Dilbert cartoon, given to us by Josh Brown, who runs a really good, he's got a really good Twitter account. I mean, he's a bit, you get about 30, 40, 50 tweets a day, whatever they are. But he comes out with some really intelligent and funny stuff. Anyway, leave you with a cartoon. See you tomorrow. Bye.